defining how the island's marine spaces will be used for the safety and benefit of everyone. Thursday, 23rd April, from 10 a.m., we head to the People's House. You can come in or tune in. Either way, don't miss it. Look Alive Tobago. A special sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly is being convened to introduce the Tobago Marine Parks Bill 2026. This very important document is the first step in defining how the island's marine spaces will be used for the safety and benefit of everyone. Thursday, 23rd April, from 10 a.m., we head to the People's House. You can come in or tune in. Either way, don't miss it. Look Alive Tobago. A special sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly is being convened to
Let us now pray. O Almighty God, as we have come together to begin our meeting of the Assembly, we humbly beseech you to grant to all our members the light and guidance of your Holy Spirit, that we may wisely take counsel together and come to such decisions as shall promote your glory and the well-being of all our citizens in this our land, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be enjoyed by all people. Grant this for the sake of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Oath of Allegiance of a new member. Announcements by the presiding officer.
Honorable members, I have received leave of absence from today's sitting from member for Mason Hall South, Bagatelle, Assembly member Natisha Charles Pantin. The leave is granted.
Assembly bills sent back from Cabinet. Assembly laws brought back from the Parliament. Petitions, papers. Presentation of reports from Dispute Resolution Commission, select committees. Chief Secretary's questions, questions to secretaries, questions for oral answer. Requests for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by secretaries or assistant secretaries. Personal explanations. Introduction of bills. The Tobago Marine Parks Bill 2026.
Honorable Chief Secretary, member for Palatavere, Lansom Speyside. No. The clerks of procedural first.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. I beg to move that next stage of the bill entitled the Tobago Marine Parks Bill 2026 be taken forthwith.
Honourable members, the question put is that the next stage of the bill be taken forthwith. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it.
Motion to get into the business or sittings of the Assembly and move by Secretary or Assistant Secretary. Public business.
Leader of Assembly Business.
Mr. Presiding Officer, on behalf of the Chief Secretary, I seek leave for portions of his presentation to be delivered with the assistance of audiovisual aids. I also seek leave, Mr. Presiding Officer, at Standing Order 91 to move that Standing Order 51 be suspended to allow for the Chief Secretary to complete his presentation in its entirety.
Honourable members, the question put is that Standing Order 51 be suspended to allow for the Chief Secretary to finish his speech in its entirety. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Honourable Chief Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Presiding Officer. I beg to move that the bill entitled An Assembly Law to make provision for the establishment and regulation of marine parks in Tobago and other related matters be now read a second time. Mr. Presiding Officer, honourable members of this House, I rise today not in routine, but in response to a tragedy that has shaken Tobago and the country to its core and stirred the conscience of our people. At the very onset, I ask this honourable House to join me in extending our deepest condolences to the family of young Angelica, a child full of promise, taken in a space that should have been defined by joy, safety, and innocence. There are moments in public life when policy feels distant, when legislation feels procedural. This is not one of those moments, Mr. Presiding Officer. This is actually a moment of reckoning. Because what occurred at Pigeon Point is not merely a tragic incident, it was a failure that speaks to something deeper. It compels us to ask whether the systems we have relied upon are truly fit for purpose, whether the measures we have taken have been sufficient, and whether we have acted with the urgency that the safety of our people demands. Madam Presiding Officer, we must resist the temptation to treat this as an isolated event. We must resist the comfort of describing it as unfortunate, unpredictable, or rare. The truth is more difficult, but is also more necessary at this time. This is a pattern of risk in spaces where families gather, a pattern of warning signs that have not been matched with enforcement, a pattern where danger has been allowed to coexist with recreation. And it is a pattern that must be curbed firmly, decisively, and without delay. Nearly 2 decades or so ago, in 2007, when a pirogue plowed through the same waters in Pigeon Point, running over then 17-year-old Yannick Quesnel and his girlfriend, Spanish national Ana Carolina Barilaso, who were here in Tobago and on vacation. Quesnel was left paralyzed in the aftermath, prompting a years-long legal action that sought to hold the Tobago House of Assembly accountable for the safety of beachgoers. That legal action against the THA succeeded. In 2010, then Justice Judith Jones, noting a danger presented to persons using the park's waters for sea bathing, which, according to the judgment delivered, was a known danger to the THA and the Pigeon Point Heritage Park Limited, the company, which manages and controls facilities at the park. The failure by the THA, and I'm quoting from the judgment here, the failure by the THA to take steps to prevent boats and other watercraft from coming so close to the shore as to pose a risk of damage to sea bathers, and the failure of both the THA and the company to erect warning signs on the beach and or in the park in close proximity to the beach is, in my opinion, a breach of the duty of care owned by the claimants as visitors to the park and users of the adjacent water for the purpose of sea bathing, close quote. That was in the judgment. The judge also found that the teenagers had used reasonable care for their own safety and were entitled to expect that the THA and the company would use reasonable care to prevent injury. I'm quoting from the judgment again. It says, in failing to erect warning signs or to prevent boats accessing the adjacent water, the THA and the company breached the duty of care that they both owed to the claimants, and as a result of those breaches, the claimants suffered injury, the judgment said. By 2011, Mr. Presiding Officer, some months after the judgment, the Tobago House of Assembly banned the use of all watercraft in Store Bay, Pigeon Point, and Boko in Tobago. Then Environment Secretary Hilton Sandy said that this had been done to deal with errant users of the water, and that only jet skis from the Tourism Division for rescue activities would be permitted. This is 2011. 2011. 2011, I was not even yet at university. 2011. But if we should go back a year before 2011, in 2010, we had Andel Roberts of Mount Pleasant, Tobago. He died at hospital after operating his jet ski. Police were told that Roberts had been found unconscious after attempting a stunt with the watercraft. In 2018, Tobago primary school student Shem Murray died at Pigeon Point Beach when the jet ski hit a coral structure below the water, thrusting him out of the vehicle. He was first taken to the Scarborough General Hospital and later transferred to Trinidad for treatment. He was placed on life support but died 2 years later. In 2023, 21-year-old Matthias Jerry went missing after an accident on a jet ski near No Man's Land, Tobago. His body was later found submerged in water. Last year, we had a 71-year-old Grenadian British citizen. He drowned in no man's land, and one of his friends got his feet severely damaged by the propeller of a boat engine. Why am I sharing all of this, Mr. Presiding Officer? I'm sharing this because there continue to exist significant gaps in the legislation of Trinidad and Tobago governing the use of small vessels and personal watercrafts, such as jet skis. In fact, the laws are almost non-existent. But the Tobago House of Assembly, having learned its lesson from the judgment in 2010, proceeded, Mr. Presiding Officer, to enact policies. In fact, since June 2007, signs were placed in Pigeon Point at the platform leading to the jetty walkway within the South Beach nearshore area and within the nearshore zone between the North Beach and Windhole areas, all signs that state explicitly that jet skis are not allowed in the park. Jet skis are not allowed to operate in the park. The 2011 policy, as established through then Secretary Hilton Sandy, explicitly banned the use of jet skis from Store Bay all the way along the coast to Boko. Subsequently, in 2016, May 25, 2016, this in my hand is a copy of the confirmed Executive Council minute that gives approval to implement the Boko Reef Park user policy under the then Division of Agriculture, Marine Affairs, Marketing, and the Environment. And since we came into office, from early 2022, this administration continued by putting in place a management committee for the park using these very policies, these very directives of the Tobago House of Assembly. So the Tobago House of Assembly learned its lesson. We put policies in place. We installed signs. We have stated publicly that jet skis ought not to operate in the park in the way that they do. And before I go further, I want to be clear, Mr. Presiding Officer, that while we have those policies, this incident proves what we have been saying all along, that this creature called the Tobago House of Assembly have a set of responsibilities on paper, but has little to no authority whatsoever. Imagine this THA, I guess the way it's framed in law, is like your little multi-poos at home, your little Pompek, have the loudest bark, but significantly small bite. And so while the THA did everything the court said we ought to do, the THA is left practically powerless in enforcing these policies. And I'll show you later on how, without the assistance of other state agencies, these policies mean next to nothing. So we put the policies in place. We put up all the signs. We have had secretaries upon secretaries talk about the issue. And as a matter of fact, I want to share some dates. Some important bits of information. On June 8, 2008, Mr. Orville London publicly warned jet ski operators and establish the rules. Then we go to May 2nd, 2016. Sorry, April 16, 2015, and the THA moved for better safety at the Buku Reef Marine Park. That's when we established publicly these policies, and they're published online. On May 2nd, 2016, marine access is restricted from jet skis. May 3rd, 2016, the THA decided that $500,000 was to be spent to establish boundary around the Buku Reef Marine Park. Here the date, May 3rd, 2016. That is to install mooring buoys. We say buoy, so if you don't want a buoy, it's buoy. Right? Install the buoys, install the ropes, demarcate the area, identify the channels, do the necessary maritime surveys to ensure that we guide users of the Buku Reef Marine Park. That $500,000, May 3, 2016. Then we go to July 19, 2017. Hayden Spencer, the then secretary, again warning jet ski operators and publicly publishing the policy for jet skis. July 19, 2017. Then we go to the year 2020. Sorry, I could go back before 2020. August 19, 2011, THA bans jet ski operators. Then we go to 2020. July 9th, 2020, we had a first setup of a committee to manage the Buku Reef Marine Park. October 27, 2020, updated guidelines published for Buku Reef Marine Park. November 8, 2020, publication again from the THA insisting no alcohol at Buku Reef Marine Park. We go to the year 2022. April 21, 2022, publication from then Secretary for Food Security on the prohibited use of Buku Reef Marine Park by jet skis. April 22nd, 2022, again the division publishing no partying and alcohol at Buku Reef Marine Park. Then we get to the year August 19, 2022, sorry. We again publish the Buku Reef Marine Park rules. February 16, 2023, we publish Buku Reef Marine Park guidelines, and we publish it for the upcoming carnival period. Then we go to 2024. April 5th, 2024, Assistant Secretary Nigel Tate publicly going through the Buku Reef Marine Park rules. In fact, that still exists on YouTube, and you can go looking for it right now. Then we get to 2025. On April 16, 2025, Buku Reef Marine Park rules enforced over Easter. I'll show a pattern, because in the same way we publish it and remind the people on April 16, 2025, on April 2nd, 2026, the new Division for Environment led by Secretary Henry published again and reminded the public Mr. Presiding Officer, why did I go through all of these dates? It's because I want to establish that the THA did not just create the policies. The THA have published those policies. The THA made them public. The THA, without fail, almost every year have been reminding the public that these are the rules. The THA have been trying its best to enforce those rules. The THA installed signs from as early as June 2007 in the Pigeon Point area about the use of jet skis. And still, we arrived at April 2026, and a 7-year-old child is dead, was killed by a jet ski, notwithstanding our best efforts. And I want to point out that the THA has been trying its best to work with other agencies of state for enforcement. And I want to share with you a memo written by the manager of the Pigeon Point Heritage Park Limited. And this is a memo sent to the chairman, the new chairman of the Pigeon Point board, Mr. Karen Duke, written by Ms. Danielle, the manager. And it says, and I'm quoting, "Dear Chairman, this memo is submitted to formally advise of recent efforts made by the Pigeon Point Heritage Park staff to engage the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service for intervention in relation to ongoing unauthorized jet ski operations within the Pigeon Point Heritage Park. Despite the presence of clear signage prohibiting jet ski activity within the park boundaries, operators continue to access the shoreline areas within the Pigeon Point Heritage Park and operate in the adjacent nearshore waters. This activity poses a risk to public safety and undermines established regulations. The affected nearshore area is actively used by multiple categories of non-motorized users, including bathers, persons engaged in shoreline fishing, and other recreational users participating in non-motorized sea activities. Given the relatively shallow nature of the water, these users are often standing in the water. The area also accommodates the floating water park. The presence of motorized jet skis in close proximity to these users significantly increases the risk of collision and injury. On Friday, April 17, 2026, at approximately 1:13 p.m., after a failed attempt to contact personnel at the Crown Point Police Station via landline, Sergeant Christmas was contacted and informed that a jet ski was operating along the South Beach area. A request was made for a patrol response. Sergeant Christmas indicated that the assigned vehicle was engaged on another scene, but advised that she would contact the Operations and Emergency Services Division to determine whether a patrol could be dispatched. On Saturday, April 18th, this is after the little girl got killed there. On Saturday, April 18, 2026, at approximately 12:07 p.m., Sergeant Christmas was again contacted and advised of jet ski activity in the vicinity of the jetty area. She indicated that she would assess what action could be taken. It remains unclear whether any patrol response was ever executed. That's the same day the little girl who was killed was being cremated. Further, at 4:16 p.m. on the same day, 18th of April, Acting Inspector Wilson was contacted and briefed on the situation, including the prior communication with Sergeant Christmas. Although he was off duty at the time, he indicated that he will follow up on the matter. Subsequent to this conversation, a police patrol vehicle was observed entering the compound. However, it could not be confirmed what actions, if any, were taken in response to the report. Additionally, on Sunday, April 19th, jet skis were again observed operating in the same restricted area. Photographic evidence of the activity was captured and shared with Mr. Barry Lovelace, Marine Park Manager, for his awareness and necessary follow-up. These repeated attempts to secure TTPS intervention highlight ongoing challenges in effectively enforcing the prohibition of jet ski activity within the Pigeon Point Heritage Park. The continued presence of unauthorized operators also presents a serious safety concern to staff who are duty-bound to enforce all park policies. Given the frequency of these incidents and the limited certainty of enforcement response, further engagement at the institutional level may be necessary to strengthen coordination and ensure timely and consistent action. Your guidance is requested on the way forward, including any escalation of formal engagement with TTPS leadership to address this matter with urgency. And this is the end of the memo. I want Tobagonians to understand what's happening here. We set the policy. Policy is guiding property that we own, that we operate, that we have a company in charge of. And notwithstanding that, it would appear as though the TTPS refuses to engage those who are trespassing. Refuses to engage. And it's at this juncture I want to say that should anybody wish to sue the THA over any incident there, my instruction to all lawyers will be to go to court and ask that they sue the Attorney General and the central government. Because you cannot tell me that we are culpable, we must pay when things go awry. We set the policies in place, we install the signs, we continue to publish and advertise and inform and educate the public. And yet, we are asked to do so with our hands tied behind our backs, without any ability to even get the police to even come and cast an eye over the operations. And it's not operating in silos, not just jet skis alone. Go down to Store Bay. You go down to Store Bay, put on a straw and go down there now. See if somebody and jumping in front of you with a half a spliff leading one side of them out, puffing smoke in your face. We have had incidents of people stabbing each other in Store Bay, fighting over visitors, fighting on reef boats, stabbing each other, gunshot going up in the air, lawlessness. And then whenever it happens, the THA, like the Good Friday Jubilee, is beaten upon, as though the THA is doing nothing to treat with the problem, when in fact the THA has done every single thing it ought to do in law. And for me, before I go into the bill, Mr. Presiding Officer, this speaks to the issue of Tobago's autonomy. This can happen on no other island. Tobago is in a worse place than Nevis. Nevis have 13,500 people. Tobago has more people than the whole country to pass what Tobago send down there. Because I cannot guarantee, as leader of this island, that Tobago will continue to be a nice sibling if we continue to be locked out of our human right to determine how we ought to govern ourselves. It is patently unfair. It is unfair. And notwithstanding all of this, the Tobago House of Assembly in November 2020 came to this very house and passed bills pursuant to Section 29 of Act 40 of 1996 and sent it down to the Parliament in Trinidad. I was seated exactly where Councillor Roberts is seated today. And where Mr. Alexis is seated, at one point used to be the former Chief Secretary. 2 cycles ago. By that time, he had already had his coup and taken over the government from then Chief Secretary Kelvin Charles. They did some public consultation on the bills. As a minority assemblyman, I went down in Buku myself, among the same fishermen, went among them and spoke to them about the same bill in 2020. Many had objections to the bill because they felt like the THA was trying to control how they use the bill, how they use the marine park. Because as far as they're concerned, they grew up there, they live there. Nobody should tell them when to go in the park, how to go in the park, whether they could fish or can't fish, or what they shouldn't do in the park. But notwithstanding that, I came to this house and I sat with my colleagues, then Councillor Bremner. She was B Israel at the time. She has evolved then. Then Minority Leader, Mr. Watson Duke. And we took a decision to support the bills. Because there comes a time, even in a democracy, when you cannot take the decision that is popular, but you have to take the decision that is right. Think of a parent. Will you let your child go and play in fire and say, well, it's a democracy, let the child choose for themselves? Will you see your child going in imminent danger and say, that's fine, the child have a mind of their own, God created them with a mind to think for themselves? Or would you as a parent do all that is necessary to prevent that child from causing injury to himself or herself? I know as a responsible parent, that's what I will do. I will lay down the law. There is no democracy when it comes to safety. And as a responsible government, the actions we take today and the actions we will take over the next 2 to 3 weeks goes beyond being popular. And whether those in the area like the decisions or not, we are going to press ahead with those decisions. We have to save them from themselves. You see, it is not enough for us to regulate this industry. Regulation by itself is intention on paper. Without enforcement, it becomes suggestion. And when safety depends on suggestion, lives are placed at risk. What we require is not only a framework of rules, but a system of active, visible, and consistent policing that ensure that those rules are respected in real time, on the water, where the risks are immediate and unforgiving. And let me be clear, this is not an attempt to stifle enterprise. This is not an effort to take bread from the hands of young people. We don't want to take food from nobody's mouth. On the contrary, we want our youth to thrive. We want them to earn. We want them to build businesses. We want them to create wealth from opportunities that Tobago's natural assets provide. We want them to excel. But enterprise without discipline becomes danger. And if we allow these young men to destroy the industry, they'll in fact be destroying their own businesses. They'll be destroying the entire tourism product for Tobago. They'll find themselves penniless, and Tobago as a whole will suffer. So this is because we actually love the operators in the area, why we must treat them with a heavy hand at this time, until such time as they understand what they ought to do and how they ought to behave. Because when an incident occurs, it damages public confidence. It invites stricter national intervention. It exposes operators to criminal and civil liability. And it erodes Tobago's reputation as a safe, world-class destination. A single reckless act on the water can actually undo years of marketing, years of brand building, years of trust. Who paying for that? Who paying for the marketing that must be done now to say that Tobago and Pigeon Point is safe? What people don't realize is that the weekend that led into this, the Easter weekend, this happened some days after the long Easter weekend. That same Easter weekend, Pigeon Point recorded the highest ever amount of proceeds from the gate in the history of Pigeon Point. In some instances, 300,000+ in a day. You know how many people, how much $20 that is? And now we must do the work to say to the world that Pigeon Point is still safe, that Boko Reef is still safe, that Store Bay is safe, that Boko itself is safe, that no man's land is safe. That costs money. At a time when the THE and Tobago has less to spend on marketing Tobago than our nearest competitors in the region. So why must this be an issue that we have to treat with today? This is about patriotism and love for Tobago. How could you love Tobago and want to destroy it at the same time? How could you love it and be so selfish that you think that whatever you alone want to do is right? And so then I listen to the nonsensical complaints coming out of Pigeon Point from some of the stakeholders. And I think I will start to respond. I see somebody complaining because somebody constructing a boat was instructed to clean up the area. How you could have fiberglass all over the place? There are other users in the space. There are bathers, there are fishers, meaning fishermen or women. You have the reef boat operators. You have those who playing in the water park. You have the restaurants. You have all forms of recreation there. And yet somebody cussing because you're told you can't just leave scraps of fiberglass lying around all over the place. To me, that defies logic and decency. And then when we get to no man's land, and I'm saying to the Secretary and Assistant Secretary that they have to go and clean up operations across at no man's land too. That's a disaster waiting to happen. And no, I have no intention of approving the build-out of some mansion on no man's land or some big, massive structure on no man's land. Nor is it the intention of the government to say to the operators in no man's land, you can't operate, you can't sell food, you can't sell drinks. In fact, we want them to. We want them to. But they have to do so in a way that meets all the health, public health and safety rules, which means that we have to figure out a way to get bathroom facilities there, fresh running water for people to wash their hands. And it can't be every Monday morning somebody new come and knock up a piece of shed on the point, because then no man's land becomes everybody's land and nobody will be able to use it. You could barely find space on that spit of sand because everybody just knocking up and adding on something else. About 2 or 3 years ago, I said nobody else should go there. About 2 or 3 years ago, I said publicly anybody else go there, they should be removed. But then I don't know if public officers are afraid to go there and move people from the space because it has some bad John from down in the area. But the area must be properly regulated so that those who are applying the trade, they can do so for as long as they can create intergenerational wealth. I love the concept of the boat going around and you could get a little pillory and different types of pillory while in the middle of the water and the snow cone. That's a beautiful concept. I love that you could get fresh grilled fish and thing across there. And, well, I don't eat lobster, but you get all kind of seafood across there. I love that. And all we are saying is that that must be regulated. It must be managed. It must be tidy. It must meet international best practice. It must be safe. Because if it's not safe, if it's not tidy, let one visitor go across there and pick up some disease or something that is food related and see then sue all the way behind. And we have to figure out how to pay and then find money to do proper PR to deal with the reputational damage. And yet, every time you attempt to put the fixes in place, people run and start to talk as though we're trying to lock them out. It's not about locking them out, it's about management. In the absence of management, foolishness will pervade. And we have to manage those spaces. And we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to manage those spaces. Since the incident occurred, the tragic incident, the THA has gone, and all the booms we had, since the oil spill, we bought some extra booms and we had it there in storage in the event of another oil spill. They're now down at Pigeon Point, and we are procuring additional booms because we don't have enough. So if you see the work is incomplete, it's because we're purchasing more booms to be able to do the demarcation. The use of the booms will allow for the demarcation to be extremely visible and make it much more difficult for jet skis and other crafts to penetrate. We have been reinforcing the legislation. All the signs are cleaned, and additional ones are being put in place. The Secretary and Assistant Secretary met with the stakeholders. But I already tell them I'm not interested in no meeting. Right? I already tell them that. So good luck to the Secretary and Assistant Secretary. They met with the stakeholders, particularly the jet ski operators. They met with the reef boat operators and all of those who operate in the space. All watercraft owners. The instruction that they're working on now is that everybody who works in this space must be registered, must be given some identification that says that they're permitted to operate and work in the space. They are mandated to ensure that those operating in this space are properly clothed and uniformed. So a great deal of professionalism comes to this space. As a matter of fact, we love them so much that we're deciding that we will foot the expense of the first set of uniforms to them. Right? They just come with their logos and the insignia, and we provide it for them. There must be order in the space. Order in the space. And it cannot be a free-for-all. It can't be a free-for-all. Mr. Presiding Officer, there's another issue I must address before going into the bill. Because when things like this happen, politicians, and in particular, those who have failed in their enterprise of politics, all of a sudden they just find a voice. They just have a lot of things to say, a lot of excuses to make. I heard the former Prime Minister talking about banning all jet skis in the area. Yet the 2020 bill went to his cabinet. His cabinet. A PNM THA sent it to a PNM government in 2020. And you wait until he is political persona non grata when nobody cares about his political opinion, and he has absolutely no authority to talk about banning use of jet skis in his space. When he knows very well that the THA can't just ban it. We ban it on paper, we ban it in policy, we implementing the policy, but he knows that lawmaking is the ultimate requirement for the enforcement of policy. He sat on this bill sent to him since 2020. Oh no, he cannot make it to the parliament, and I'll tell you why. It didn't make it to the parliament because he and his party believes, they probably still believe so, that the THA should have no authority over the maritime space in Tobago. I went before a joint select committee when his then AG, who probably never win a case in his life, Alwari, was talking and saying that THA shouldn't even get the 6 miles. He doesn't think that that is right in law. And so they refuse to carry this bill to Parliament because what they intend is that every time we want to stop a marine park, we must ask somebody in Trinidad. Beg them for it. Well, I'll be damned if I will go to my grave, and that is still the case in Tobago. As far as I'm concerned, thank you, Mr. President, as far as I am concerned, once it is part of the geographical space of Tobago, it first and foremost belongs to the people of Tobago to decide how it ought to be used. And then, when the media interviewed the former Chief Secretary, he claimed, astonishingly so, that their bills for autonomy for Tobago would have granted the people and the TH of Tobago the legislative authority to treat with that marine park. And that is a great untruth, and I want to point it out. I want to go to the bills that were before the Parliament and that are still on the Parliament's website. In those bills, there are two schedules. There is a Schedule 1, which speaks to a list of matters which the Tobago Executive Council shall have exclusive administrative jurisdiction. And there is a Schedule 2 that speaks to the list of matters which the Tobago legislature shall have exclusive law-making powers in Tobago. When I look at number 19, under the matters which we have exclusive administrative jurisdiction, which, by the way, means the same thing like what we have now. That's what we have now, exclusive administrative controls. So we don't need a minister in Trinidad to close a school. The secretary and the SS3 in Tobago does that. We don't need a minister to close a road in Tobago. The secretary for infrastructure does that. We don't need a minister to come here to deal with natural disasters. We do that ourselves. We pay and pave our own roads and deal with public utilities and build our own houses. That is just executive administrative controls. That's different from lawmaking, because we can't set any policy over Tobago ourselves. We need somebody in Trinidad to set those policies in law for us. And number 19, under that schedule that speaks to exclusive administrative jurisdiction, number 19 is land and marine parks. In other words, all we will have if that bill was passed is exclusive administrative controls over land and marine parks. That doesn't mean that we could set a policy and the police is duty bound to lock people up based on it. That's what we have. And it is nowhere, the maritime areas are nowhere listed in the areas which we have exclusive lawmaking powers in Tobago. So let it come again. Let it try fool somebody else. Tobagonians clearly are not fooled. And that's why Tobagonians got rid of them all entirely. What we need is a bill, an autonomy bill, that grants the people of Tobago not just exclusive and executive administrative controls, but grants the people of Tobago law-making powers over Tobago. I don't know what they are afraid of. We're not trying to make law for anything in Trinidad. In fact, we don't care what they do down there. That's their business. We're not trying to dictate their pace and how they move. In fact, very often when the media try to ask me a question about management and government in Trinidad, I tend to refuse, because that's not my business. Tobago is our business. And all we have been saying is that give us authority over what is Tobago. That cannot be that difficult. And so I present again this bill to the House, the Tobago Marine Parks Bill 2026. This bill has some minor updates from the last one presented in 2020. So I'm not by any means taking full credit for this bill. When this is published, I don't want to run out and say, well, this is similar to what we put out. Yes, it is similar to what you put out, but your own PNM people refuse to handle it. And I want to advise this House that after consultation with the Attorney General and the Prime Minister, I was given the undertaking that once this is passed and sent down to the Parliament, that in the space of 2 to 3 weeks, this bill will make its way into the Parliament and will be addressed by the National Parliament. And this bill, so sometimes, Mr. Presiding Officer, it's better to work with friends than family. No, sometimes friends treat you better than family. And it couldn't be that we had a Tobago-born Prime Minister, for which we ought to be proud. On a per capita basis, Tobago has provided more Prime Ministers than any other section of the country of Trinidad and Tobago, just on a per capita basis based on our population size. So we have every right to be proud that this island, where people were raised on monies from picking cocoa and coconut and doing farming goat and sheep and cow and pigs, that they could raise and educate people who could become prime ministers of this great country. We should be proud of that, and that we did so twice. And for me, who is relatively young, it happened twice in my lifetime. May even happen 3 times, I don't know. But I'm saying, I don't know. But I'm saying, we have every reason to be proud. But how can it be that when one of our own is at the mango tree, when a brother is at the mango tree, is then supposed to eat? You ever go to school with an older brother or older cousins? I didn't have older brothers, I had older cousins. And once there was a mango tree right above the Space Anglican Primary School, between the primary school and where Miss Harper lived in the government quarters. That government quarters was recently transformed into a CERT building by TIMA. And you had the sweetest little part there. Plenty trying to get busted under the mango tree. Right? But guess what? When your older cousin and them up there picking mango, you don't have to fight up. You're guaranteed to get mango. And we had an older brother as prime minister for 10 years, 2 terms. 2 terms. And we could not get, well, the autonomy bill is one thing. That might have other complications. But this marine park bill, all this bill does is give us authority to set up marine parks and to manage those marine parks. And to do so within the 6 miles. 6 miles ain't really that far, you know. 6 miles ain't that far. I have to check and see if the 6 miles go beyond Little Tobago to know whether we had jurisdiction or not. But exactly. Right? But the point is, this simple piece of legislation, we could not get from our brother at the mango tree. And now we're getting the commitment of who should be a stranger to get this done for us. And I want to thank the Prime Minister and the Attorney General for that commitment, and I hope that they will live up to that commitment. This bill, Mr. Presiding Officer, it brings order where there has been disorder. It brings enforcement where there has only been policy. It brings us safety to a space where, for too long, risk has been tolerated. And so let me highlight clearly and directly what the bill does. First, it establishes law where there was only guidance. For years, we have had policies governing the Buku Marine Park. We have had signs, we have had advisories, but we did not have law. The bill changes that. It creates a clear legal framework for how our marine parks are to be used, protected, and managed. It ensures that conservation, tourism, and public safety are no longer competing interests, but aligned objectives. Second, no longer will entry into the park be unregulated. The bill introduces a permit system with access permits, transit permits, special permits, where every operator, every activity, every vessel must now fall within a defined legal framework. And importantly, Mr. Presiding Officer, the bill directly addresses the issue of motorized personal watercraft, including jet skis. And just so you know, jet ski is a brand. So whatever the brand of the personal watercraft is, or PWC is, whatever the brand, this legislation treats with them. Because they cannot simply operate freely within the park, they must be permitted to transit, and when they do, they must operate at the lowest possible speed within what is now legally defined as a no-wake zone. That is not policy, that will be enforceable law. Importantly, in the bill says in clause 2 that the bill provides for that the bill including marine parks, which is defined as an area delineated in the first schedule to the bill, and includes any other area declared to be a marine park by order made under clause 51. So with that particular clause, it will mean that should the THA decide to set up other marine parks, we don't have to go back to anybody in Parliament, anywhere else, to set up the marine park. We can do so from right here in Tobago. And perhaps this is a good time.
I'd like to take this moment to remind those in the public gallery that if you're in here, the phone is either silent or power turned off. I have heard it numerous times. The next time, I will ask that you are escorted out of the gallery. Thank you. Continue with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. And I was about to say that perhaps it's a good time to park parenthetically and to advise my fellow villagers in Speyside and my fellow constituents along the northeast coast that pursuant to this bill, that the THA will look at setting up similar structures to protect the ecosystems in those areas. It hurts, Mr. Presiding Officer, to go up to Speyside to church on a Sabbath, and then you're going home and then you meet people with a set of trouble, a set of parrotfish, that they take out all the parrotfish they could find on that day. And I'm asking myself, I wonder if they understand the implications of this to our reef systems and to beach formation. I wonder if they understand that what they're doing is really destroying the ecosystem in such a way that their children and children may never know what a parrotfish is. And that will end up with coastal erosion because beach creation and beach formation is impacted, and that we are unable to have healthy reef systems that will help to mitigate against strong tides, strong currents, and treat with protecting the coastline. And I will tell you, chop sweetener. No, I will tell you it is. I could tell you, I've been advised that when it's done up on my end, I could go Mason Hall to get some chop. No, it is. We like it traditionally, it's part of our meals. It's nice when I get cooked down with the okras and so on. So we know it's good. And it's reported by the Secretary for Environment that when you have some good dose of it, it's good for the back. I don't know. I'll have to ask Dr. Bremner, the Secretary for Health, to investigate and to investigate the science behind that. But the point is, there may very well be a need for us beyond Book Reef for us to establish other parks. I had the good fortune before I became an elected member of this House to go with the Speyside Eco Marine Park Rangers, a team of environmentalists, and an NGO that I helped to form, to St. Lucia, to look and investigate the marine park in Soufrière, the Soufrière Marine Park. And I was amazed at that time, and this is about, what, 2015 maybe? I was amazed going through the park, how they have designated areas for fishing, designated areas that you can go scuba diving and the reef boats can operate. They have designated area where they are doing, I don't know what is the correct term, if schooling is the correct term, where they are trying to nurture the young and the fish nurseries. They are designated area where they were actually rearing fish species, then to release into the wild. And what the fisher folk there was reporting is that since the coming on stream of the park, that the quality and the quantity of the catch had increased. That they were getting more fish, larger sizes of fish, to the extent that the fisher folk themselves started reporting other people who were misusing the park because they were now reaping the benefit of the park. And I came home since then and I kept asking myself, why can't we have similar structures here? But St. Lucia could have it, because when St. Lucia government decides to act in the interest of the people of St. Lucia, nobody else have to come and underwrite it. When the THA acts in favor of the people of Tobago, we now need somebody from Port of Spain to underwrite it so that it takes effect here. And that's the biggest difference between here and St. Lucia when it comes to this matter. And so this bill provides an opportunity for us to go even beyond the Buku Reef Marine Park. The bill delineates the areas of the Buku Marine Park, and that has not changed. We have not changed it. I pointed out how $500,000 was spent in doing the delineation, purchasing the marine buoys, installing the guide ropes, determining where the channels are that boats can pass safely, and how to protect the reef systems. And by the way, the Pigeon Point Heritage Park is 100% inside the Buku Reef Marine Park. It's not outside of it. It is inside of it. No Man's Land is part of the Buku Reef Marine Park. Nylon Pool is part of it as well. The bill also introduces real safety requirements. Every vessel must be properly licensed, must operate within its passenger limits. You know, I smile as I said that. I saw a TikTok the other day of a reef boat, and the operator will know who they are. Be good friends, you know. And the song playing Big Ship Sailing on the Ocean. And I look at the reef boat, if you see people like ants all over. And when I read the comments, you know what the outsiders were saying? They were asking if the boat was not overloaded. They didn't see it as being admirable, as a positive. So with this law, they will have to operate within their passenger limits. And critically, they have to be insured for third-party risks. This means that if something goes wrong, victims are not left without recourse. It forces responsibility into the system. We appreciate that the bill alone can't save life, you know. We appreciate that we may have the bill and an accident might still happen. We could have the bill and something happen on a day and the boat just collapses or sinks. But it identifies ways that we could ensure that the users of the park can be insured against these risks. Because a law without enforcement is just a suggestion, under this bill, inspectors can be drawn from a myriad of people. That can include Coast Guards, Police Service, the Fisheries Department, lifeguards and marine park personnel, reef patrol officers, and they are to be determined based on regulations set by the Executive Council and the Line Secretary. They will be empowered to act, and they can stop and search, they can seize equipment, they can remove persons from the park, and arrest offenders when necessary. And there's a big difference between a sign on the beach and law on the water. That's the biggest difference. Right now, we have signs on the beach. We have policy. And you know what they just keep operators saying among themselves? Well, the most they could do is talk to we. They can't do nothing. They're testing we. They're saying they can't do nothing. So somebody just died, but you go zoom past people bathing and playing in a water park in the beach. How reckless you could be. You ain't care. And to prove you ain't care, when you're tired of that, you park up your jet ski right on the shore because they can't do me nothing. This bill says we can do you something. And we will do something. This bill also imposes meaningful penalties. And that's one of the differences between this bill and the 2020 bill. In 2020, the penalties, the fines, were minuscule. In this bill, we allow the penalties to be aligned with penalties established in other environmental laws, like the Forest Act, for example. So you ain't going to misbehave and pay $5 and pay small money and get away. It means that you will have to face the consequences, which will be high. So significant fines, terms of imprisonment, revocation of permits, and even seizure of vessels. And to be clear, these penalties are not excessive. They are, in fact, consistent, as I said, with what already exists in environmental legislation across Trinidad and Tobago. In the same way, we must protect forests. When we protect forests, we impose penalties. When we protect wildlife, we impose penalties. When we protect the environment, we impose penalties. So when we act to protect human life and a globally significant marine ecosystem, we must do no less. The bill also prohibits fishing within the marine park. And yes, you don't have to fish in the marine park. The ocean is what a contiguous space. It's not like the marine park have up some barriers that whatever fish is in the marine park can't go outside of the marine park. So you don't have to fish in the marine park. The marine park allows for nurseries to occur safely because the lagoon is part of it. And the end result is that you will get higher quality and better quantity, higher quantity of the catch right outside the marine park if you desire to fish there. So you don't have to fish inside the marine park. It prohibits damage to coral systems. I recently took a tour over the Buku Reef in a glass bottom boat. Member for Bonaccord Comp Point, member for Buku Mount Pleasant. I know you all like to boast about where you all live. But your maritime space cannot be compared to what we have in the east and northeast of Tobago. Even if you go north to Annos Vale and off Culloden there, you can't compare on the quality. COVID was probably the best thing to happen to that reef system in a while. And we have agencies like IMA and so on doing work. So right now they're doing the planting of the turtle grass. So we could continue to provide a nice habitat and feeding ground for marine or sea turtles. But the truth is, we have to protect what is left. Sure. And if you go to your respective villages and ask the very seniors there, ask them what they used to get out of Buku Reef and out of Pigeon Point and off Storby. Ask them how much conch they used to be able to get, how much lobster they used to be able to get, how much fish they used to be able to get. Ask them what the reef system was like. And they will tell you that things change and that they have lost some of that. But you have to appreciate that if you don't manage what you have, the resource is not infinite. And at some point it will be depleted if not managed properly. And so what we want is to make Buku, Pigeon Point, and Storby, we want to bring them up to the standard to be the greatest beaches on the greatest little island on the planet. That's what we want for you all. So it's not prohibition for the sake of bad mind. It's really management so that we can protect and we can ensure that conservation happens and that what you have remains as beautiful as it possibly can. The law also defines anchoring zones, designated mooring areas, clearly marked navigation channels, and we are separating sea bathers from vessels and separating recreation from risk. And this means that this law brings some responsibility to the THA too. because it means that you have to keep monitoring those marine buoys, ensuring that they're in good working condition, that you may have to attach navigational lights and so on to them for vessels passing in the night. That means the THA will have to keep spending money to ensure that this area remains properly demarcated and the channels are well known. So it doesn't absolve the THA from responsibility. In fact, it gives the THA a lot more responsibility in the management of this park. Operators will also now be required to undergo training. And this is critical because we are not seeking to destroy the industry. We are seeking to strengthen it. It's about how we add professionalism to the industry. Can you imagine if you go down to Storby and everybody there, tidy, well attired, approaches you nicely, you're well greeted, you're not hassled and hustled and pushed and proud, and that you're not having 2 or 3 people fighting over which boat you should go on. Imagine you're a visitor and 2 people fighting to determine which boat you should go on. You'll be scared, you will decide you're not going on any. And both of you will end up losing. But imagine we inject the industry with a measure of professionalism. Everybody wins. Everybody will earn. And we look at the astonishing numbers we were getting at Pigeon Point, just over the Easter vacation alone. And I don't like to count other people's money. But if you count how many visitors they had on their vessels, how many trips they made, you could count, and that's just one weekend. That's just one weekend in a month. Count all the other weekends. Count every day of the week. Because they may not have as many trips on a day like today, but I'm sure they have at least one going out today. At least. And of course, all of that is tax-free, because what they pay in tax is probably negligible, if at all they pay. And so we're not trying to run your bread and ruin your bread or take away your bread from your mouth. No, we will earn money. We want a reef boat operator to be a millionaire, a multi-millionaire. We want a jet ski operator to have real cash in the bank. We want that when finance start to roll out fintech solutions for micro enterprises, people should be able to go down in Pigeon Point and Storby and Buku and tap the card and pay. Take the phone, tap your phone, money going in your account. You could now call up your personal banker and say to your personal banker, I want a loan, I want to pay for my child to go off to study, I want to build a house, I want to make another investment, I want to divest my earnings, because now we could track your earnings. This is about how do we manage the space, so you who operate in the space can earn more. We aren't trying to run you from the space. We want you to be around in the space. All we have said is that in Pigeon Point, in parts of Buku, in parts of Storby, that it is practically risky for you to operate. And that you have to appreciate that the vast majority of users of the space are really just bathers in the space. You are in the minority, and the minority cannot affect the majority from using the space. So it brings professionalism to the space. I am anticipating, Mr. Presiding Officer, that some will say the bill is too harsh. The bill is actually proportionate to the risk, because the risk is high. I listed out several others who have died or have been injured in the space, not just by jet skis alone, but by boats. And if I had gone to the distance of counting the amount of times a boat sink and all the incidents that happen, you will know that this bill is proportionate to the risk. When life is at stake, the law has to be firm. We must also appreciate that with this bill and the permitting system that we want to implement, it gives us a chance to better protect those who ply their trade in the space. Think of it this way. You go out in the park, Mr. Presiding Officer. I know you are a man that like a little zest. So you go out in the park, Mr. Presiding Officer. No. We will. We go out in the park, you go out in the... I'm being hypothetical here. Only hypothetical, Mr. Presiding Officer. You go out into the park. You go out into the park. It is 9 p.m. in the night. You're out in the park operating. You had no permit to be out there that hour in the night. Nobody knows you're out there in the night because you're in a private zest. Something happens that could potentially be catastrophic. We have no system in place to respond to you because we never know you were out there. We didn't permit you to be out there. One of the reasons for permitting is not to say that the answer will always be no. It's not to say that we will shut down every attempt to operate in the park in the late evening hours. Because we know that there are the bioluminescent tours and sometimes people just like to be out there in the night. But if something happens, once we are aware, we can have police on notice, we can have lifeguards on call, we can have a search and rescue set aside because we know we have permitted you to be out there. When you're out there and there is no permit system and you can go anytime you want and nobody knows and something happens, and when it happens, the chief secretary is in the bed sleeping, the secretary at CTO conference, the deputy chief secretary cannot be reached because she only up in Bell Garden, right? Your area reps. I've had to try to wipe your from my eye. I tried to see if you could call to try to come and rescue you. By the time that happens, lives might be lost. So there's a practical reason why there must be a permit system. And I understand when the secretary and assistant secretary spoke to them, they started asking why we need to be registered, why we need to be permit, why we need a pass, right? Why we have to get that. It's because at the end of the day, when foolishness happens, when Murphy's law steps in, everybody looks to the THA for an answer. Nobody ain't calling the little friend home, you know. They're looking to the THA for a response. And when the THA doesn't respond, then they say, well, the THA ain't doing the work we put them in there for. We get in trouble and they can't even respond. And we are saying that the bill is proportionate to the risk. This bill will not hurt young entrepreneurs. Instead, it will protect our young entrepreneurs. Because one reckless act can destroy an entire industry. Safety sustains businesses. This is not overregulation. This is responsible governance. Every serious tourism destination in the world regulates its marine space. We already had policies. Yes, we had policies. But policy without enforcement are just suggestions. What we need is the ability to enforce. The bill is not about restriction. It is about protection. Protection of lives, protection of livelihoods, and protection of Tobago's name on the global stage. And if we are serious about all three, then this bill is not optional. This bill is necessary. And so, I know many in Tobago are looking at the proceedings today. This bill, once passed through the committee stage, will be made available online as it makes its way to the cabinet, to the Prime Minister and the Attorney General for action. I expect that this bill will be passed through the Chief Parliamentary Counsel's office, which is standard for law before it gets to the Parliament's floor. And I expect that the Prime Minister will be true to her word and will bring this bill to Parliament soonest. I also will expect support in the Parliament from the opposition in the Parliament and the independent benches in the Parliament. I don't think such expectations are too much And I think the current opposition leader might just have a different disposition to her former political leader when it comes to Tobago. And I hope that means well for the people of Tobago. In fact, she was there in Boko for Easter. She was there in Boko for Easter. I was happy to see her there. And I hope that her affinity for this island will translate in support for this. But I want to end by going back to a very important note. This very act, Mr. Presiding Officer, is actually dehumanizing, you know. This very act is not one in integrity, you know, Mr. Presiding Officer. How can we look to 69,000 people resident here and say, you can't do nothing for yourself unless we allow you to? This is what this says. And I hope that while we may use Section 29 of Act 40 of 1996 from now till December, I hope that after this year, when we pass a thing in this house, it becomes the thing. It becomes the law for the people of Tobago. The THC has never sought powers to pass laws in direct contrast to the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. All we have ever sought was and is the ability to pass laws that will govern our socio-economic space, will determine our future, how we grow, how we develop, and what we could do for ourselves. We're not even seeking powers that will allow us to even say, well, rubbish the Constitution of the Republic. And somehow that has always been too hard for the National Parliament to treat with honestly and fairly. No island in the Caribbean, no territory in the Caribbean will actually accept Tobago's position, political position. None will. Not one will. St. Kitts and Nevis remain a united territory only because they were able to get this right. St. Nevis was preparing to go its way as an independent territory. As a matter of fact, in the election before the coming together and forming of the independent nation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the party that won in Nevis probably had the shortest manifesto in the history of the world, with just one line. With just one line, which was literally saying separation by any means necessary. That was the end of it. That was all they put in their manifesto. That was all they put in their manifesto. That's how serious Nevis was about this. And St. Kitts, as the larger island, had to say, nah, we could work this out. We could figure this out. You could have the ability to govern your space. We govern our space, and together we could form a successful federation. Tobago's thrust for autonomy will actually bolster Trinidad and Tobago's economic fortune. The fortune of the whole country. The whole country. There are many things that we need to do in Tobago that will actually improve our ability to earn as an island, including earning forex, that we just can't do because we don't have the authority in law. We have to wait on somebody else to do it. Grenada could just wake up in the morning, decide what airlines landing at the airport. If civil aviation doesn't agree with who we negotiate with and give them some contract to land here, they can't land here. I saw yesterday Mia Motley signing his signature on the final concrete beam to go into a multi-story hotel building. First of that hotel brand in the Caribbean. In Barbados. Barbados building hotels like crazy. All on the little strips. Hotels, even when there are no beach, all they're seeing is just some rock and sea. Some rock and sea. And the minute you want to build something higher than a coconut tree here, some some woman who passed her retirement date, passed the expiration date and running town country planning here will tell you you can't. And we accepting that as being legitimate for our governance and for our progress. I pray God, Mr. Presiding Officer, that we don't have to do this beyond this year. Because this really reduces our humanity as an island. We should not be begging for this. This framework we have comes out of an unconscious bias that says Tobagonians somehow can't do it for themselves, can't think for themselves, not bright enough, not smart enough. Yet every indicator proves that to not be so. That proves to not be so. This is the island with the first co-educational school in the whole country. Before Trinidad and Tobago knew that they could put boys and girls in the same classroom, Tobago was doing it. I was doing it with a school that the parliament at first refused to give support for because they said it's only poor peasant farmers' children will go there. And that's when Big Art came in. Big Art, that was the real role of Big Art. The real hero behind Bishop's High School is Big Art. That is how the school got the support. Then nationally, look how long Big Art did. Look how many years ago that was. And we're still fighting for the same things Big Art was fighting for. We're still fighting for the same things A.P.T. James was fighting for. We're still fighting for the same things that Robinson was fighting for. And even the things that Robinson did not have the political will to fight for. We're still fighting for them. Still. And I hope this time, this round, that the Parliament will give support to real legislation that gives Tobago real autonomy. Final point is this. This is the reason why our maritime space must be the subject of lawmaking powers of the Tobago House of Assembly. I've said it before. We should not have to go to anybody in Trinidad if we want to build a jetty or if we want to establish a marine park. That might not be a priority for Trinidad. Right now, the priority for Trinidad might be crime. But this is a priority for us. We're trying to market the hell out of this island. We're trying to increase the number of people coming into the island. We're trying to increase the forex cash flow in the country. And that depends on us selling our natural assets. But we are hamstring in doing so because with every step we want to take that will make us competitive with the rest of the world, like protecting our marine parks and our marine assets, it requires us humbly coming to this house, passing something and begging somebody over the waters to do something for we. Tobago cannot continue like this beyond this year. Nevertheless, I remain extremely grateful to the government and our friends in Port of Spain for agreeing that this should make it to the Parliament. I have no reason to be shy about that point. Some on this island will try to make it an embarrassing thing that we have friends on the other side. They had family on the other side and could do nothing for we. If my friends on the other side can do something for us in Tobago, I am taking it and I'm supporting it. And they will continue to be my friends until such time as they are not supporting what the people of Tobago want. For now, they are supporting what the people of Tobago want, and that element of political pragmatism must be institutionalized here in Tobago for us to get what is needed. I am not watching race, I am watching gender, I am watching geography, so I don't care if you're from South, if you're from Port of Spain, or if you're past the lighthouse or you're past Caroni Bridge. I don't care if you're here textile like mine or not, or whether you're carrying a slave name like mine or not. What I care about is what you will do for my people in Tobago. And anybody who will do this thing for the people of Tobago deserves to be treated as friends of Tobago. With that, I thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer, and I beg to move this bill standing in my name.
Members, this House will now be suspended for lunch for 1 hour.
The Tobago Marine Parks Bill 2026. This very important document is the first step in defining how the island's marine spaces will be used for the safety and benefit of everyone. Thursday, 23rd April, from 10 a.m., we head to the People's House. You can come in or tune in. Either way, don't miss it.